Hi everybody, I'm Natalie. I study long-term relationships and I have heard over 100 of love stories, real life love stories. In this video, I'm going to talk to you guys about this fine line of expressing interest versus chasing a guy, so that we don't end up in this Simone Biles kind of a situation. Now, I have heard good love stories and bad love stories, and from what I have heard from numerous women, making the first move or expressing interest is not like a big deal when it comes to like grand scheme of things, when it comes to relationships. These women who actually made the first move or initiated interest or expressed interest in a guy ended up in a very good, happy, healthy, long-term relationship from what I have seen, versus the women who chase the guy. Sadly, there are women that still chase a guy and they ended up in a very, very unhappy, unhealthy relationship. So I'm going to talk to you guys in like a love story format. If you guys are not interested, y'all could like skip this video, because that's exactly how my brain thinks. I talk about like real love stories. So let me briefly talk about Simone Biles and what really happened on that podcast. Is I personally think he came from a place of like insecurity. Think of a guy who's like new to a school or new to like, new to a town. Like, what does he do? He wants to like stand out, right? Do you guys remember that movie, She's the Man, Amanda Bynes? Oh, she becomes like, a guy. What does she do in order to befriend like this guy? She ends up, recruiting lots of women, like her friends, like, pretending as, oh, you know what? I'm actually the ladies' man. I don't have any problem talking to women. I'm like this popular guy. Like, that's exactly what Simone Biles' husband is actually doing on this podcast, because he wants to show, like, look at me, like, I'm a really hardworking guy and blah, blah, blah. By the way, ladies are also interested in me. Look who I've pulled, Simone Biles, So he wants, like, this male validation so badly. That's why he wants to play this character, like, look at me, I'm the man, I'm the prize, like, I didn't do anything. Simone Biles did, So that's a little bit cringe. What I do not agree about this is on TikTok, most of the women were like, chasing is bad, blah, blah. It is bad, okay? So what I think in Simone Biles' relationship, when it comes to like the online stuff, like liking a guy, talking to a guy first, liking his pictures, is fine in my book. Driving like 45 miles and see the guy, giving him like a bigger ring and blah blah blah, like I personally don't agree with that. Like, no. Let me just briefly talk about this love story. Let's call this girl Clara. She was during that time 23 years old. She had moved to like this new small town. She was like a career woman. And, she was in this town and she got into like dating. And she gave the chance to guys that actually initiated interest in her first. They were very much interested in her. And unfortunately, that led to like really, really bad breakups, And within the period of like 2 years that she moved to this place, this small town, she had like so many like breakups, and she was just like, I'm convincing myself to date this guy who I'm not even interested in. I have to convince myself that this guy is attractive, and that's how I get into a relationship. So she was like, I'm not really about that. She did have a criteria in guys, okay? She liked guys that were athletic, the guys that she was attracted to physically, and thirdly, guys that had like a big social group. I don't know, it was like a preference. 7 months prior to her breakup, a lady at her workplace set her up with like her nephew. They went on a date together, and to her knowledge, she really felt like, this guy was amazing. But unfortunately, after date 1, he didn't really contact her after that, and he wasn't interested in her. That's what she thought. And she was like, what if kind of a situation? What if that relationship had worked out really well? I found his Instagram page. God, he actually is athletic. He plays sports, in his spare time. And, he is 27 years old. And, he has a group of friends. And he's the guy that I'm attracted to. That's why I had like this what if, after the first date, that did not really work out well. And to her knowledge, what happened on that date was like, nothing bad really happened. It's just like they both went on a date together, and the next time, like, he wasn't interested. That's it. There wasn't much information that she could like go into, like, so she did not really know. So she slid into his DMs And she was like, hey, she made like a small talk, and she was like, hey, do you want to grab lunch? And he was like, yeah, sure, no problem. She basically, kind of asked him out on a date, but then he was the one who paid for the date. After this first date, she waited for him to approach her. She waited for him to ask her out, and he actually followed through. She felt like, that this guy was like her guy. Like I said, she always had like this criteria, like her dad, her brother, they were athletic, they played sports, they had a lot, like, big group of male friends. And she was attracted to this guy. And this guy was like a shy guy, so that's why, like, she was like drawn to him. And long story short, he basically explained to her, like, why he did not, like, he kind of like left her after first date. It's because he made like this reference, like, and he was like, oh, this band is like my favorite band, I really love it, blah blah blah. And she was like, I don't really know what band you're on about. He was like 27 years old when they went on their first date. And she was 22 years old during that time. So he felt like, that she's too young for him. So that's why he did not really follow through. It worked out well. And their relationship is quite successful. Moral of the story is, this is 2024. We don't have to like wait for the guys to like come over to us. If we find a guy that is attractive, it is okay to express interest in a guy, not chase him, express interest. Okay, if she hadn't had slid into his DM, she would be sitting with like that what if kind of a situation. Oh my god, he rejected me, blah blah blah, without knowing, like, this is like your dream guy. Was her story. Let me start with the second love story. Let's call this love story The Girl Who Bought Her Own Engagement Ring. This girl, right, she came out of like a really traumatic, like really bad breakup. She was in a very bad place after this guy dumped her. She was on Facebook, and like, Facebook basically suggested like this guy. And this guy was very attractive. So she basically, messaged him first, and they both started talking to each other. So she was the one who messaged him on Facebook. She was the one who also asked his number so she could call him. And she was in the USA, and this guy was in a third world country. This girl had immigrated from this guy's third world country. First time she spoke to him, the first day itself when she phoned him, she basically was talking to him like, he told her like not to pronounce his name a certain way. It's not how it's pronounced. And she just wanted a reaction out of him. She wanted to tease him. She wanted some kind of like connection, I would say. So she basically pronounced it like that would trigger him, quite a lot. And kept on repeating again and again. Anyway, so that was like the first time they actually spoke to each other. So she ended up talking to him, called him the second time also. And that's how like that's how the relationship actually started off. So in terms of like work, this guy was basically, had finished his university, and he was looking what to do with his job. So he basically got a job, far away from his place. And he had to like share a room with like so many guys, in that area. And it was quite hard life. After he got this job, he basically told her, not to call him again. And during this time, this girl was like, she was crying. She was very nervous. She did not know what to do. And this guy, he brought like a new phone, and he brought like a new SIM card for him. So he did not share his phone number to this girl. And this girl, she was like in such a bad emotional state. She ended up calling his brother. Actually, she called his brother first, and brother, like, girl, I don't know you. I'm not going to give you my brother's number, full stop. She ended up finding his mom on Facebook, and she got this guy's number through Facebook, and she was like, hey, the mom basically gave the phone number to her. She actually made some kind of excuse. I don't really remember what excuse she made. And that's how she got his number, and they both, started talking to each other and stuff. And he realized the work life was kind of hard for him. It was really, really hard for him. That was like job uncertainty. And he thought back in the head, like, okay, if he comes to the USA, his life is going to be a lot easier, like how her life is like. He doesn't have to work this hard. So that's when he started talking to her and everything. So long story short, like, he was like, hey, maybe we should get married and stuff. And she was like, oh yeah, we should definitely get married. And she was very excited because he was the one who talked about marriage first to her. And then he was like, okay, what kind of a ring do you want? So he brought like rings for her to show. And she was like, oh, I don't really like any of them. Like, she's basically sent like a photograph of the rings. Like, he would basically show her like the round diamond if she had sent like the pictures of like this princess card square diamond. And she was like, no, that's not what I want. And he was like, this is a third world country, girl. You're not gonna have your way. So she ended up buying a ring for herself from the USA. So she traveled to this third world country, and they both actually ended up having like a court wedding, court marriage. Her family also came down, and there was like this lunch, they didn't want it to have like an elaborate wedding. Why? I really don't know why. I really don't know why she didn't want it to have like an actual wedding. This is like going against like the laws of, like, it's really going against biology. Many of you guys probably screaming from this screen, but this is what actually happened in this relationship. Both guy's family and the girl's family were like, okay, we're gonna throw like an elaborate dinner at this restaurant and everything. Guess who did not really show up for the dinner? The groom. This is like the first impression he has to make with his family, with her family. This is the first time they're gonna be like, oh my god, this guy is good. You made a right choice, and he did not show up for this dinner. Long story short, they both ended up in USA. Unfortunately, when he got a job, he ended up like falling in love with an American girl, and he basically dumped her for this other girl. Even after he got married to her, before the affair, there was always some sort of a problem with him. And if he wanted to buy shoes, like, he would tell her, hey, I want so and so shoes. And because she had to like work really hard for like his visa, she had to show like certain amount of money, and she had to like keep up with it, and she was working like really, really hard. Even the day she was having like post-operation, like, unfortunately she used to still go to work, post-operation. And even when she had like health issues, like, this guy would not really show up. She would always like, she had to rely on like her family to show up. Anyway, so this was a story of a girl who brought her own engagement ring. What do you expect, right? So in this love story, you could definitely tell that this girl, from the get-go, she was chasing him. This guy got like a new job, and he was like, I don't want to give my number to this girl. And what happened? Yes, that's the difference between like chasing and expressing interest in a guy. I know that this one woman, she's been married for like 20 years. Very attractive woman. She like notorious at like approaching a guy, making the first move, doing the small talk and everything like that. She had got rejected like so many times, but you know what? She's a very beautiful woman. She's blonde. She's got amazing figure. She's just like a very attractive girl, and she always made sure that she looked pretty before she went and approached a guy. Now, there is an issue. There is a little bit like thing that I want to talk to you guys about when it comes to like a bedroom, okay? This blonde woman who made like lots of first moves, with the guy. Bedroom situation was kind of like different for this woman. So what happened was, they ended up with guys that did not really initiate physical intimacy, So in the bedroom, this blonde woman had to initiate physical intimacy. I don't know why, but most of the times when it comes to like, these type of relationship, the woman has to initiate physical intimacy. I don't know why that is, okay? Now, of course, like, this blonde woman, she actually, she and her husband, they went to therapy, couples therapy, and the therapist basically gave her husband a couple of things to work on. If they were like being physically intimate 2 times a week, like, first time, like, like, she would initiate physical intimacy with him, and the second time, like, they would get intimate her way, where he would initiate physical intimacy with him. The thing was, she really hated to initiate it. You know, she really wanted a guy to make, her husband to make like the first move all the time, because it's like, you know, he looks at me, he finds me attractive, and he initiates it, kind of a thing. You know, that's like an appeal to it. So she did not really like she didn't want to initiate it. When she thought like, you know, I'm gonna take my husband to a therapy and like, you know, it's gonna get fixed, she really expected like, you know, he would you know, initiate first. That didn't really work out that way. How Bumble works, like women make the first move. The only problem with the guys that are on Bumble, they are king babies. You know, you have to do everything for the guy, like everything under the sun. You know, everything under the sun. You have to look pretty. You have to, like, you know, have a better job. You have to manage his money better. You need to make sure that he doesn't overspend. He's gonna play, like, guys on Bumble that have found like successful relationships. They do have like a mother wound. This is just like my observation, and yes, going to therapy, you can fix that. You know, most of the time, most of the guys, after they go to therapy and they fix their mother wound, the relationship is a lot healthier. You know, that's something that I have seen. And most of the women that have been with guys who met on Bumble, and the guys that were like manipulative and all that thing, they actually thought like, you know, their husband was like, oh, he's narcissist, you know, like he had like the narcissistic traits, because he was like so manipulative. Like when the girlfriend or wife was in like distress, he would see her as like, I don't know, like he would not be like emotionally like, oh my god, I, like, you know, this is my wife, I have hurt her, my actions, you know, hurt her feelings. Like they would not feel this for some reason, you know. Okay, so this is something that I would suggest, like, you know, pay attention to. If you want to make that first move on OkCupid or like, you know, dating apps, go ahead, you know. But like Simone Biles driving, like, you know, to his place, like, no, like that's too much, you know. If you made the first move, sit that one out, you know. Don't drive to his place. Don't buy him like the expensive wedding ring and stuff, you know. Don't do those type of things, okay? If you guys want to, like, you know, swipe right on a guy, message him first, you know, go ahead, do that. Look at like if he's initiating the conversation the next day. Make sure he asks you out on a date. Also, like, you know, there's a trick to it as well, you know. Put hurdles in his way. How? If the first time you met him, it was like a weekend, and he tells you like, you know, hey, it would be so nice to meet you next weekend too, you know, are you free for lunch and blah. You basically tell him like, you know, hey, you know, I'm not quite sure about next weekend, but like weekdays I could do, you know, change things up just to see, like, you know, if there is a hurdle, is he gonna jump through it? And that is a skill that we need. Making the first move, expressing interest, is no longer a dating sin. If you're not testing him, like, you know, if he's not jumping through the hurdles, paying for the dates, if he's not jumping through the hurdles for you, he's not worth it, okay? Another brilliant trick that works really well if you're in like a pub, like bar kind of a setting, or restaurant kind of a setting, or even like a Starbucks, when you're ordering your drink and he's there, like, you know, just like have like small talk with him, work, introduce yourself, like, ask him about his work and everything like that, and then leave him alone, come back to your girlfriends, talk to your friends, you know, do your own thing. If he comes back to you, most of the times, if the guy finds you attractive, they would actually come back to you. You know, they would talk to you afterwards. You can always do this, you know, if there's a guy in person. So yes, I have told you guys everything that I know about making the first move. But yeah, with this, I'm going to end my video. There are more videos coming your way.